Hey, TJ, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Doing awesome. Hey, you called right into the podcast. Want to just jump right into it?
Sure, up to you. You do it by phone?
Yes.
All right, sounds good to me.
Try to make it easy for you, man. But I want to thank you so much for calling to the podcast. I want to say this: Tanael Joachim, right? Did I get it right?
Yes, you did.
Got to be honest,
It's
TJ.
that's why I
Um,
did too.
I practiced that more than I did the questions that I do that I did for this interview.
Well, I appreciate the devotion and the commitment. A lot of people just the reason I go by TJ is because show business is about ease and access, and I've just watched too many hosts and producers and whoever just butcher my name the way it's supposed to be said. So it's like, all right, TJ is cool. I just got to make sure I'm not, I'm the best TJ possible and not be confused for TJ Miller.
No, I think there's a strong distinction between you and TJ Miller. Strong, very strong. I don't know if you noticed.
Do you think? I don't know. We look kind of the same.
Oh, okay. All right. You believe that. Okay. Please. All right. As long as you believe that. But I'm glad you called into the podcast, man, because I watched the special January 3rd. I watched it last night. It was awesome. But before we jump into any of this, I want this to be the TJ Plug Fest. Please talk about your social media, your website, all of this, because people like to listen to the podcast, but like research my guests too. So please, we do that at the start. Please go ahead. All TJ everything.
Oh, beautiful. All right. All TJ everything. First off, you can find me at TJ Stand Up. At TJ Stand Up on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And I'm on Twitter as well. Also at TJ Stand Up. So you can find me at TJ Stand Up on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to go to my website and sign up for my mailing list, you can go to www.tanaeljoachim.com. That's my website, www.tanaeljoachim.com. So I communicate mainly through Instagram and my mailing list through my website. So either one of those is good for me. So, that's basically all the TJ stuff you can use to stay in touch with me, find out what I'm doing next, get to know which projects I'm working on and which older stuff I've done that are still up on my website you can check out just to see the range of my work. So at TJ Stand Up.
Hey, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going through the website today and kind of how I came across you. This was a while ago. This was, I believe, like the Comedy Central Gotham special. They used to have like this, like a peek-in at the Gotham, and I do remember seeing you. And then when I saw it, I guess it sparked, doing research for this podcast. I guess I was like, oh, that guy. But I didn't realize how quick that went past. You've been doing comedy for what, 8 years now?
8 years now, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how time flies, but even though you've been doing it for 8 years, this is your debut special. I loved it. It's very autobiographical. I'm curious, what's the significance of January 3rd?
Well, you mean as a special or as the title? Which one do you want to?
Both.
Well, let's go with the title. The title is That's the Day of My Birth. And that's the day I recorded the special. I recorded it Friday, January 3rd of this year, so 2020, which feels like 10 years ago, naturally. So It was the night I turned 31 years old. And there was a little bit of numerology to it that I really enjoyed too, because I turned 31 that night, and that was the third day of the first month of the year. And it was just kind of all very nice to put together. And I thought, you know what, January 3rd is what it is. And there's a bit in the special where I mentioned that I'm actually turning 31 that night. So it was really cool to have that. So the title kind of came very organically. The special itself, man, it's I'm very proud of it because I did it myself. Because I don't know how you in show business or not? Are you a comedian?
I am not a comedian. I am on the fringe of it. Whatever this is, the podcasting thing, I'm a podcaster, been a podcaster for a little over 10 years. So I'm aware of you guys.
Right.
TJ, I don't know if you ever seen this movie. This is the best way I can describe it when I'm asked this question. You ever seen the movie Highlander?
Yes.
You know how they say we're just the watchers? We just watch and don't interfere. We just watch what happens. That's whatever I am.
Gotcha. Hey, man, we need watchers.
I would hope so. You need an audience.
Hell yeah, everybody plays a role. Watchers are very important. Especially for what I do, comedy, there's no sense in it. If comedy happens without an audience, you're just a sad person just spewing nonsense into the world. So without the audience, it's meaningless. So we fucking love watchers. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse on your podcast.
Yes, you can. We actually encourage it.
Ah, beautiful. All right. Yeah, we need you, so keep doing what you do, so I appreciate it. Yeah, I was, to get to the answer that you needed, for the special, the reason it means so much to me is because, 8 years in, and I had that hour, and I was proud of it. It felt right, and I wanted to put it on the record. But, the business side of comedy is very tricky. Usually what happens is you get someone, you climb certain ladders, like, you do JFL and Faces, or you do The Tonight Show or Conan a couple times. All of those things that eventually get you to a place where a streaming service or a network might want to buy a special from you. I tried to get to all of that. None of it happened, but I still was happy with the hour that I had. So I said, fuck it, I'm going to do it myself. And I basically researched everything, and I had a couple of filmmakers in my circle, people that I like, that I've worked on with other projects, and they were down, and we made the special with a very small budget. Well, not super small, but something that I could afford while keeping good quality. So we did it, and I got some of my friends to invest in it. And we only did one show, which was very risky. And I said that in the beginning of the special. And I thought, why cut that out? Because that sort of gives a little bit of the history of the special. We only shot one show, which is tough because whatever I mess up in that show, I can't go to a second show and edit that in and replace it. So this is it. This is all you get. And, the jokes that maybe could have hit better in a second show, because I might have been nervous because it was the first taping, I didn't have a chance for any of that. So this is all you get. And I'm happy with how it turned out. We had a crowd of maybe 140 people in a small venue in Brooklyn. And it was a night to remember, and it was such a great way for me to introduce myself to the world of comedy at large. And I'm very happy with the finished product.
And I'm glad you said it that way because it is your debut special, but one of the cool things I liked about it, and especially now knowing it was on January 3rd of this year, you didn't have a lot of topical stuff because pretty much after your special, the world went straight to hell. But, after, as you did it, I got a lot of autobiographical stuff, like some of the things like sharing your experience from Haiti to America, growing up religious. It was very, it was, in a weird way, this special was like shaking hands with people like, hey, this is me for the first time.
Yeah.
One of the jokes in your special, though, I like asking this question because the answer is always different. You talked about the reception from your parents about being a comedian.
Right.
How's that going right now?
Surprisingly, it's still very much the same. It might have been different if, let's say, Netflix gave me $50,000 to make a special, and it's in the media and it's everywhere. Then it would have been a more concrete thing for my mother to be like, oh, okay, he's not gonna die in a ditch somewhere. This thing actually has value. Because, a lot of parents like that stamp of approval from the mainstream world, especially immigrant parents, because it tells them, oh, some people think this is actually valuable, as opposed to he thinks this is making him happy. So in that sense, that didn't happen. So she's still thinks of me as someone who's doing something she's not happy about. But the more savvy people in my family, my brother, my cousin, people who kind of know a little bit about the world of show business, they really appreciate it. They're 100% on board. But my mother doesn't care that much.
Now, I mean, you kind of mentioned this in the special that you quit school to do comedy, like a lot of comedians. But one thing you touched on is like working with troubled youth. And sometimes when you work with troubled youth, because of their affiliations or whatever their trouble is, that can affect you more. I hate to beat on this a little bit more, but was your mom cooler with that than it was comedian, or was it just kind of like the same?
She wasn't cool with that because my mom is a very rigid person. Her plan was, because the backstory that's gonna make this make more sense is, I was a very good student. I would get A's. I was like class valedictorian, that type of kid. So in her mind, life gave her a child that should become a very noble thing, meaning like a doctor, something that she can brag to her neighbors and her friends about, something very respectable, those kinds of things. So the moment I did anything else, she wasn't happy. And then the nail in the coffin was, oh, he's a comedian, which is very useless to her in her world. So it's even worse. So I don't think she even appreciated the fact that I worked with troubled youth. She was fine, but she wasn't as angry about it as me being a comedian, but it wasn't her favorite thing either.
Makes sense. But
Yeah.
like when you were growing up, well, I guess going to school in Utah, you talk about it in past interviews, and I don't want to jump too much in it. It was like you took the leap. You dared to get on stage for the first time. When
Yeah.
you did that in Utah, what was it about that comedy bug, so to speak, that made you like, this is it?
Well, just for some quick clarity, I didn't go on stage in Utah. Like, I made the actual decision while I was in Utah and wrote some material while I was out there, because I was living in the outdoors and there was a lot of time to think. I was working in the outdoors. I was a little bit free from the constraints of social media. Like, my mind was very clear. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. And I wrote 5 minutes of jokes that I practiced a couple times in front of my mirror, just using a hairbrush as a microphone, that kind of stuff.
Oh.
And yeah, go ahead. What was you going to say?
No, I for the clarity. Oh, okay. I'm listening.
Yeah, so I did that in Utah, and then I Googled, did a bunch of research, and it turned out the best place to start comedy is New York City, because that's where most of it happens. That's where you can get on stage 5 times a night. That's where you can watch people that are exponentially better than you, and they can help you improve and all of that. So I wrote all of that down, and I drove from Utah to New York with my little 5 minutes of jokes. And I remember exactly, it was I got to New York on a Monday, and on Tuesday, August 14th, 2012, I got on stage for the first time, did my 5 minutes of jokes, and I got enough chuckles. I didn't kill, I didn't bum. I got chuckles, and I felt comfortable. And I was like, this is it. And then I haven't looked back since.
Oh my God, that's even better than what I originally thought, because, well, better or worse, because you went straight into the deep end, making that drive, going to New York, which, it is very successful. And like you said, you see people who's been there before you, but it also could be a nightmare because those same reasons, because when you're going against the best of the best and you're getting up 5 times a night, you got to do that 5 times a night. So that drive and determination, oh my God, I didn't I just thought it started in Utah and like, oh, I'm getting a little good, and then went to New York.
Now I went straight to New York and started there. It just seemed like the better move, which it's also, man, I don't know if you've ever lived here. It's a hard city to live in. I talk to comedians about this all the time. Your first year in New York, trying to be a comedian is easily one of the most challenging years of anybody's life.
Man. But what's interesting, I'm glad, well, in a good way, it worked because it toughened you up. But one thing I've noticed when I was doing my homework, I tried to do a little bit of research. You always kind of reference in past interviews that you're not a comedian yet. You're learning the ways of comedy. Is that still going, or can you pat yourself on the back and say, I am a comedian now, forget what I said earlier, this is what it is?
You really did some serious research, man. I appreciate this. Sometimes you talk to people and they're just kind of making shit up as they go along. I really appreciate you, bro. This is
Thank
great.
you.
So it's not so much that I'm not one. It's more of the principle of it being there's no finality to it. You know what I mean? Like this is
Okay.
a journey as opposed to I've arrived. Like it's a process. Like you get better at it every day. It's almost endless. Like the process of self improvement, I think, is endless. There's no reach point where you go, well, I've made it as a comedian. Even Dave Chappelle can sit and go, well, I'm done. I've reached and unlocked all the levels of comedy. I don't need to learn anything else. That's just not what art or any craft is. So it's this idea that, oh, I gotta keep doing this and finding new ways and changing new things and finding this skill. Maybe I can work on my voices better this time. Maybe I can improve on my physicality. Maybe I can create these new characters. There's just a lot of avenues for you to keep going. So for me, I see it as I'm trying to be as fluent as possible in this language. Yes, I'm proud of how well I speak it for my 8 years in it. But God, there's so much more that I can do, and I'm just excited to keep going to those new places, man.
You know, it's funny when you talk about that. Now, if I'm getting too, if I did a little research, if I get too creepy, let me know. But what I'm getting at is you talk about finding your voice and how you say you're learning new and exciting ways. But one of the people who inspired you early in your career, and probably still now to this day, is Gary Shandling, if I'm correct. And
I'm,
if I am correct, Gary Shandling's whole thing was about being yourself. As awkward as you can be, making it relatable, being yourself on stage and sharing that to the crowd. Like I said, if it's getting too creepy, just let me know.
nah, man, it's never creepy. I love when people have information. It's never creepy. It's great. Yeah, I love Gary Shandling. I think he was a very innovative creative. He was awesome. I don't know if you ever seen the Larry Sanders Show.
Love that show. Love it.
Yeah,
Hey now.
yeah, yes, yes. That show gave birth to like a new genre of comedy show. Just the way he did it, like the whole behind the scene of a show. It's a show about a show, and like The Office came from that. Parks and Recs came from that. So many other shows came from it. That's how great the guy is. He set like a blueprint for a show, and he was so good at exploring himself and his own behaviors, the good and the ugly. And that's what it is. You gotta be yourself. That's really what I got from Gary. Like this awkwardness, this deep discomfort that sometimes comes with being human. And if you're on stage or you're creating something and you're not exploring that, then what are you doing really? Because that's all you have. Like it's just you. You the subject that you know the most out of anything else. Like yes, I know other things in the world. I can talk about them, but eventually there's no one that I can know as well or as much as I can know myself. So that's my favorite subject.
I mean, and that's good, but That's really good, especially now. The way I look at it is, what about stand up now in your world? And because think about it, you are in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn can be a hostile ground of some of the funniest comedians and some of this, the line, I like to call it the line of this PC police. So what about you can make yourself unique in the terms of how you handle it? What's so funny or what is perceived not to be so funny, because there are a lot of people with a lot of issues in the crowd, and it's almost like this weird PC police to some degree, where they're not enjoying the story or they're not enjoying the comedy. They're just looking for buzzwords so you can get you in trouble. So how do you police yourself or try to be yourself now with, whatever's floating around someone else's head?
Yeah, man, it's getting more and more difficult. It's kind of fucked, and that's why a guy like me is happy to be doing it at a time where, like, the emperor of our craft, I like to call him that, Dave Chappelle, is doing it at the level that he's doing it and giving us the courage to talk about whatever we want because he can do it. And he's at a point where he's untouchable. People can't really cancel Dave. Dave is too comfortable where he is. He's not hired or employed by any corporation, so he's free to be himself. And that gives the rest of us that courage because, man, I'm telling you, it's a tough time right now to just sort of trying to explore difficult topics or adult topics on stage because people are so quick to come at you and try to take you down and like put words in your mouth and not let you be transgressive, because that's sort of what comedy is. Nobody goes to a comedy club to hear a politician lie to themselves and tell them things that aren't true. People kind of go there to sit and hear things that they may think but wouldn't say out loud because it's not good to say that in polite society. That's why you leave polite society, you come to a comedy club and hear people say these things because we need a place for those things, because those things are in our heads, and as long as I can find a way to be funny about it, that's what I'm doing. I mean, let me give you a quick backstory that has to do with the special regarding the piece you talked about. So the venue where I did the special is this place called Littlefield in Brooklyn. I taped it there, one, because I love it. It's a great venue. But two, in sort of a, and this is kind of petty, but I wanted to do it, in sort of a fuck you to something that happened to me there. Because while I was working out the material for that special, there's a 10-minute chunk towards the end about the Me Too movement. I don't know if you remember that part.
I do, actually.
Okay. When I was working that out, I did it in that specific venue. And it was a pretty NPR white kind of crowd, the kind of people who get offended by a lot of things. And they didn't take well to it. And the booker from that show, who's seen me several times, who knows me and trusts me, and I've done Michael Jackson stuff, I've done Bill Cosby stuff, I've done everything there, and it's been good. But because this one specifically had to do with the Me Too movement, she banned me from that show after that set where I was working out that material. Yeah. That was my first time getting banned from a show, and it felt shitty. It's like, oh, we are in a new territory now where people are trying to take stuff away from you because you're trying to do comedy that they aren't allowing themselves to laugh at. So it felt really bad, and I was angry about it. So I said, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to dust myself off and get back and do it. So I kept working that bit in different places where they would allow me to do it, and it became this really good 10 to 11 minute chunk that I'm really proud of. And I said, you know what, I'm going to fucking do it in that venue because I don't want to have any fear around that venue because she banned me from that. So I rented out the venue myself and taped that special and put that bit right in there.
It's funny how things like that work out because, I mean, like in the trajectory of anywhere else, it makes no sense. Think of it. You did something. that was so egregious that you got banned from this place. And so that thing was so bad and so egregious, you got banned. So you kept doing it. You made it longer. You made it, I don't want to say the word better, but you did more to it and you did it in more detail. So well that you're taping an entire special based on that thing that you were banned about. That makes no sense anywhere else.
That's right. And that's the beauty of what we do. That's why I keep telling you, it's like speaking the language, you know? Finding better ways to speak that language.
That's crazy. But I'm glad you brought up about speaking the language, because one thing I would like to ask, I got two more questions, and one of it is this. The special is great. I love the special, and if you go to your website, you get a chance to see a lot of the accomplishments so far. But when you talk about stuff like that, are there little impactful moments in your career such as that where it's just like only you know about it, or do you care to share? If not, I get it. But like little stuff like that.
Yeah, I have a lot of those. Let me see which ones are worth exploring, because there might be interesting stories that your audience may not know about. Let's see. There's just so many, like the coolest moments in comedy almost happen in the back rooms and sometimes off stage, just because little things are happening around you and you just witnessing them. Like, for instance, there's this dude named Big J Okerson. I don't know if you know
Oh,
him.
I know Big J. Legion of the Skanks. What's up, man?
Yeah, I love Big J. He's easily one of the funniest people in New York, and I would go to the club all the time, the Stand in New York City at the time, and just watch him, just masterfully do crowd work and be a great storyteller and killing every night. And then all of us, like younger comedians, open mic, would just watch it. And I'm like, oh, I want to, learn a little bit about this process, what he's doing, how he's so comfortable, and how he's able to get away with saying certain things to the crowd, and people would just laugh at it, even if it was something that, in theory, said anywhere else could be mean, but because there's the context of it. That's the thing that's happening now. People are taking comedy out of context. If you remove the context, like if you take everything I said in my special and printed it in like the paper, it would sound kind of crazy. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So people are kind of doing that with comedy. We're like, why would you remove the context? This thing is meant for a specific audience. It's meant to be delivered by my face and my voice and the way I do it and the way I can only do it. But let me not get off the point. So I would see Big J do that. And then one night I just went on Facebook and messaged him. And I said, hey, man, I'm a younger comedian. I'm a big fan of what you do. Is it okay if one day I come up and chat up with you, just share some wisdom, blah, blah, blah? And he was like, yeah, man, cool. If you ever see me at the club, just come by. And he was so cool about it. So one night I just came in and talked to him. And I said, hey, man, how are you able to be so patient and do such good crowd work on stage? And he dropped this little jewel on me, and he said, you just got to trust that you are on stage for a reason, and you're the funny person. Because if you go to a comedy club, sometimes you'll see like the host talk to the audience, and crowd work means when you're talking to the crowd and you're trying to find humor in it without your material specifically. Sometimes a lot of it is hacky. It'll be like, hey, where you from? You're from Connecticut? Oh, what a piece of shit place. That stuff, because it always gets a laugh because you just make fun of one. Big J never did that. He did almost the opposite. Sometimes he'll talk with someone for like a minute and a half, which is a long time for a comedian to go without getting a laugh. But he'll do that because he doesn't want to go to the easy place and be happy. He just wants to keep going until he finds something that's worthy of a good laugh. And he told me, yes, you just got to trust that you're the funny person. The other person will give you something to work with. Just keep going until you find something that matches your sense of humor. And that's one of the best things that I've carried with me, just when I'm on stage trying to work out material, trying to get the audience to bring it out of me. And yeah, that's my little Big J story. And the other thing that's happened also that I'm very proud of, but it's one of those credits that I can never use. One night I got to follow Big J Okerson in New York, and I did not bomb, because when you follow the best act in the room, usually it's terrible because he's so good, it's almost impossible for anyone to rise or even match that level.
Makes sense. Because
So one
it's
night I
just
was
like they so good, they wore them out, and everything you did doesn't match up to whatever they just did. So yeah, I get that.
exactly. And one night I was booked on the same show as him, and he was supposed to go last as normal because he's the funniest guy on the lineup. But something came up and he had to leave, so they put him right before me. And I was like, fuck! And he crushed. And then I said, oh man, this is a moment to see if I live or die. Then I went and followed Big J and acknowledged how hard he killed. And then I went into my stuff and I did well. And I'm very proud of that.
That's awesome. And like I said, I have one more question, as I kind of referenced at the start of this podcast. I'm kind of like a watcher. But the problem with watchers is, if you watch Highlander, sometimes people watch the watchers. So if those watchers, or I guess in this case listeners, are thinking about starting stand-up, or thinking about, I got a good 5 minutes before I get in my car and drive to, I don't know, 3,000 miles in the opposite direction, what advice would you give someone just starting out?
Well, right now I would say don't. There's not a lot of comedy going on. Don't start it now. But if after even I say don't start it now, you still feel motivated enough to start it now, then go ahead and just know why you are starting it. Start it for the right reason. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. That's not what it's about. So if this is what you want, you're trying to look for followers on social media, there's many other things you could do on TikTok or Instagram to get followers. Stand-up comedy is not necessarily one of them. So start it because you have a passion for it, and you have a burning desire to communicate creatively through that art form. There's something about it that's attractive to you, and you feel like you have something to say, and you feel like you're funny, or you want to figure out how to be a good communicator and a funny person. But you got to do it because you care about it more than anything else. That's my advice. You can do it for the wrong reason because it'll break your heart. It's a heartbreaking business.
Well, thanks so much for calling in. Before you get off, I want everyone to check out the special. It's called January 3rd. You could get it on Amazon Prime. That's just awesome, mainly because at this time of year you're going on Amazon anyway. I mean, that's just how it works. And
Exactly.
I mean, lockdowns, whatever, you are. So it's an hour. It's awesome. But one more time, TJ, if you don't mind, the TJ special, all things where they can find you, where they can do, where social media, this is your moment. Go ahead.
All right. You can find me at TJ Stand Up on Instagram and Twitter, at TJ Stand Up, and go ahead and go on Amazon Prime Video and you can watch my special. Just type in TJ January 3rd. That's my first hour of comedy, and I'm proud of it. So go ahead and check that out. And leave a review if you enjoyed, and let your people know, because you got to get the word out and spread it around so that I can break even, because I produce this out of pocket, and I would appreciate it. That Jeff Bezos give me some of that money.
And that works. I can't stress this enough. Thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time. If it's cool with you, the trailer, I think you could get the trailer on Amazon for free if I'm not mistaken. Do you mind if I pepper it with that and some old stuff from the website, just so people get a little taste of your comedy on this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Whatever's on the website is available. Just embed it, put it out there. And if you need anything from me, just let me know and I'll send it to you.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much, TJ, for just giving us a
All
moment of your
right.
time. Thanks for being a part of the podcast, man.
All right. Thank you for having me, bro.
All right. Hey, and don't be a stranger. If you want to come back, you can.
Absolutely. I'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks, TJ. Talk to you in a few.